Everyone talks about BlackRock. Larry Fink is the face of corporate villainy for the internet age. He is the guy you see on TV pushing ESG scores and buying up single-family homes. But ask yourself this: who owns BlackRock? If you look at the shareholder registry, the largest shareholder of BlackRock is Vanguard. Okay, so who owns Vanguard? If you try to Google the shareholders of the Vanguard Group, you will hit a wall, a dead end, a black hole in the financial system. You're told that Vanguard is owned by its funds, and the funds are owned by the investors. That means you, right? You with your 401k, you with your retirement account, you own Vanguard. That is the greatest lie ever sold in the history of finance. What if I told you that the structure of Vanguard was deliberately engineered to erase the footprints of the most powerful families in history? What if the reason you're paying $7 for a box of cereal, the reason you cannot afford a mortgage, and the reason your wages have stagnated for 50 years is not because of market forces, but because of a rigged monopoly hidden inside your own investment portfolio? You think you have a choice. You choose between Pepsi and Coke. You choose between Ford and GM. You choose between CNN and Fox News. But when you pull back the curtain, you realize that Vanguard holds the controlling stake in all of them. This is not just about money. This is about a closed-loop control system that dictates the price of your medicine, the news on your screen, and the food on your table. Where are you watching from right now? Drop your city in the comments below. I want to see how far this global web reaches. And if you are tired of being fed the corporate narrative, hit that subscribe button right now. We are about to expose the unfiltered truth that the financial media is paid to ignore. To understand the Vanguard monster, we have to go back to a time before the internet, before algorithms, to the age of the robber barons. In the late 19th century, men like John D. Rockefeller and J.P. Morgan did not just want to be rich, they wanted to be gods. Rockefeller realized that competition was a sin. Competition lowered prices. Competition ate into profits. So he created the trust. He bought up all his competitors or forced them to merge, creating Standard Oil. He controlled the refinery, the railroad, the barrel, and the oil. The public eventually fought back. The government utilized antitrust laws to break these monopolies up. They said no single entity could own the entire market. But the elites learned a lesson. They realized they could not own everything directly. They needed a mask. They needed a vehicle that looked like it was for the public good, but served the private master. Fast forward to 1975. A man named John Bogle founds the Vanguard Group. The narrative, the one you will read on Wikipedia, is that St. Jack Bogle wanted to create low-cost investing for the common man. He created the index fund. The idea was simple. Instead of trying to pick the winning stock, you buy the whole market. It sounds benevolent. It sounds boring. And that is exactly why it worked. By convincing the entire world to pour their savings into passive index funds, Vanguard became the vacuum cleaner of the global economy. They absorbed the voting rights of millions of Americans. When you buy a Vanguard ETF, you put up the money, you take the risk, but Vanguard keeps the voting power. This created a modern version of the Rockefeller Trust, but on steroids. In 1910, J.P. Morgan used interlocking directorates. He would put his men on the boards of rival steel companies to ensure they did not compete too hard.
Today, Vanguard holds the largest voting block in competing banks like JP Morgan Chase, Citigroup, and Bank of America. They hold the largest blocks in competing tech firms like Apple and Microsoft. They tell the CEOs of these rival companies to keep profit margins high. High margins mean high prices for you. Sound familiar? It is the exact same playbook Rockefeller used, but instead of Standard Oil, it is called the S&P 500. Let us look at the railroads of the 1800s. A few families owned the tracks, so they controlled who could ship goods and at what price. They strangled the farmers. Today, Vanguard and BlackRock own the digital railroads, cloud servers, the payment processors like Visa and MasterCard, and the logistics networks like Amazon and FedEx. If you're a small business trying to compete, you are paying a toll to the same master, no matter which platform you use. Sound familiar? And just like the Gilded Age, we are seeing a massive transfer of wealth from the working class to the capital class. This time, it is not done through Pinkerton guards and strikebreakers. It is done through stock buybacks and dividend payouts, orchestrated by the major shareholders to extract value from companies rather than investing in workers. Sound familiar? The mechanism has changed, but the intent remains.
You might be thinking, okay, Vanguard is big, but it is a mutual company. That means the funds own the company and the investors own the funds. So I do own it. This is the brilliant sleight of hand. This is the primary mechanism that allows the conspiracy to breathe. Technically, Vanguard is owned by its funds. But who manages the funds? The Vanguard Group, Inc. Who selects the board of directors for the Vanguard Group, Inc.? The existing board. It is a self-perpetuating, closed loop. Unlike a public company, where shareholders can vote out the board, or a private equity firm where the partners are known, Vanguard exists in a gray zone of corporate law. The millions of retail investors, people like you and me, have economic rights, meaning we get the profits if the stock goes up, but we have effectively zero governance rights. We do not get to see the internal books. We do not get to see the compensation packages of the shadow executives. And most importantly, we do not know who the original seed investors were. When Vanguard started, it did not appear out of thin air. It required massive capital injection to buy the initial assets. That capital came from the deepest pockets in Wall Street history. The twist is this. The families that owned the banks, the railroads, and the oil in 1900 did not lose their money. They did not disappear. They diversified. They moved their wealth into the structure itself. By moving their assets into Vanguard's private pools and dark pools, the Rothschilds, the Orsinis, the Bushes, the British royal family, and the DuPonts can hold controlling interests in global corporations without their names ever appearing on an SEC filing. Vanguard allows them to be the owners of the owners. They do not need to sit on the board of Ford. They own the block of votes that appoints the board of Ford. They do not need to run Pfizer. They own the block of votes that approves the CEO's bonus package at Pfizer. And this leads us to a specific document, a specific trail of breadcrumbs that suggests the concentration of power is even tighter than we imagined. There is a name that keeps popping up in the shadows of the banking cartels that fund Vanguard's operations. You will not believe the name. It is not a CEO. It is not a politician. It is a custodian bank that holds the actual stock certificates, the physical reality behind the digital illusion. The receipt is wilder than you think, and it proves that the global economy is smaller than a high school classroom. We need to simplify the complex machinery of this financial Death Star. How does Vanguard actually control the world? It comes down to a concept economists call horizontal shareholding. Imagine a small town with 4 pizza shops. They compete for your business. One lowers the price to $10. The others have to match it or improve their quality. The customer wins. Now, imagine a mysterious investor comes into town and buys a 20% stake in all 4 pizza shops. This investor is now the largest shareholder in every shop. He calls a meeting. He tells the managers, "Why are you fighting each other? Why are you lowering prices? If you all raise the price to $20, my portfolio doubles in value." Suddenly, the pizza shops stop competing. The price goes up. The quality goes down. The customer loses. Now, expand that to the entire global economy. Vanguard currently has over $8 trillion in assets under management. When you combine that with BlackRock and State Street, who Vanguard also owns a piece of, the big three control over $22 trillion in assets. That is larger than the GDP of the United States. These 3 firms combined are the largest shareholder in 88% of the S&P 500 companies. Think about that. Nearly 9 out of 10 major American companies answer to the same boss. When Vanguard owns a controlling stake in American Airlines, Delta, United, and Southwest, do you think they want those airlines to compete on ticket prices? No. They want capacity discipline. They want higher fares. This is why air travel is expensive and miserable. It is not incompetence. It is engineered collusion. This is parasitic finance. They are not creating value. They are extracting rents. Let us look at the pharmaceutical industry. Vanguard is the top shareholder in Pfizer. Vanguard is the top shareholder in Moderna. Vanguard is the top shareholder in Johnson & Johnson. During the global health crisis of 2020, while the world was locked down, these companies received billions in government contracts, money printed by the Federal Reserve, which devalued your savings. Who benefited? The shareholders. It is a perfect laundering machine. The government takes your tax dollars or prints new dollars, causing inflation, gives them to Pfizer to buy vaccines, and Pfizer distributes the profits to Vanguard. The hidden families behind Vanguard get richer, while you get inflation and a mandate. But it gets darker. Let us talk about the media. Who decides what you see on the news? Vanguard is the top institutional holder in the New York Times Company. They are a top holder in Comcast, which owns NBC and MSNBC. They are a top holder in Disney, which owns ABC. They are a top holder in Warner Bros. Discovery, which owns CNN. They own the company that makes the poison, and they own the news company that tells you the poison is safe. They own the company that pollutes the river, and they own the company that sells the water filter. It is an illusion of choice. And how do they enforce this? Through proxy voting. Most people do not vote their shares. If you have an ETF, you cannot vote your shares. Vanguard votes for you. In 2022 alone, the Big Three cast approximately 25% of all votes at shareholder meetings of S&P 500 companies. But because many smaller shareholders do not vote, their relative power is effectively 30 to 40%. That is dictatorial control. They use this voting power to push corporate governance agendas. This is where ESG, environmental, social, and governance, comes in.
ESG is not about saving the planet. It is a control mechanism. Vanguard threatens to vote against a board of directors unless they comply with specific agendas. If a CEO wants to focus on lowering prices for customers, but Vanguard wants to focus on a political agenda or industry consolidation, guess who wins? The CEO gets fired or he gets in line. This creates a concept called moral hazard. Because Vanguard owns everything, they cannot lose. If the banking sector crashes, the government bails it out. Vanguard owns the banks, so Vanguard gets bailed out. If the energy sector crashes, they own the renewable alternatives too. They are hedging against the collapse of civilization by owning every side of the bet. They have engineered a system where they are too big to fail while you are small enough to be crushed. The money you put into your 401k every month, that is you handing them the ammunition to shoot you. You are giving them the capital they use to buy up the single-family homes in your neighborhood, driving prices up so you can only rent. And who do you rent from? A massive property management firm owned by, you guessed it, a private equity fund, backed by Vanguard. It's a serpent eating its own tail, and you are inside the belly of the beast. The complexity of the derivative market, the shadow banking system, the dark pools, these are just moats they dug to keep you from seeing the castle. But the castle is simple. It is a monopoly. A monopoly on your labor, your health, your information, and your home.
We are standing on the precipice of a financial shift that will make the 2008 crash look like a picnic. The system is built on borrowed time and debt that can never be repaid. But the owners of the owners know this. Why do you think they are buying hard assets? Why are they buying farmland? Why are they buying water rights? Why are they buying gold? Because they know the paper game is ending. They're using the last days of the fiat currency system to transfer the physical wealth of the planet into their private holding structures. Vanguard is the vessel for this transfer. When the digital dollar collapses and is replaced, perhaps by a central bank digital currency or CBDC, the entities that own the real assets will dictate the rules of the new world. If Vanguard controls the food supply, the energy grid, and the housing market, it does not matter what currency you use. You will do what they say to survive. The greatest danger we face is denial. We want to believe that if we just work hard, save our money in an index fund, and follow the rules, we will be safe. But you cannot win a game that is rigged against you. You cannot trust institutions that view you as a resource to be harvested rather than a human being to be served. They rely on your silence. They rely on your distraction. They rely on you getting angry at the puppet on the left or the puppet on the right, while the puppet master clears out your bank account. We have stripped away the layers. We have seen the circular ownership. We have seen the monopoly. The question is no longer, what is happening? The question is, what will you do about it? Skepticism is your only shield. Information is your only weapon. Do not blindly trust the tickers on the screen. Do not blindly trust the safe investment path. Are we wiser now, or are we just walking the same path as our ancestors? Only this time the robber barons are wearing better suits and hiding behind algorithms. If this video opened your eyes, you have a responsibility. You need to share this. You need to wake others up.
The algorithm hates this content. It suppresses the truth because the truth is bad for business. Break the algorithm. Hit the like button to force this into the feed. Subscribe to the channel because we are going deeper into the rabbit hole next week, exposing the specific families hiding inside the Vanguard vault. I am your host. Until next time, follow the money, even when it leads into the dark.